Money for transit, the revitalization of Ontario Northland, improved highways and rail corridors. Just some of the ideas coming out of Ontario's four main parties during this election campaign. Joining us now for more of where they stand on the transit and transportation file, we welcome Glenn Murray. He's the Minister of Infrastructure and the Minister of Transportation and the Liberal candidate for Toronto Centre. Jamie Ellerton, he's Progressive Conservative candidate in the riding of Parkdale High Park. Rosario Marchese, he is the NDP candidate for the riding of Trinity-Spadina and his party's urban transportation critic. And Tim Grant, the Green Party candidate, also in the riding of Trinity-Spadina. And we are happy to welcome you four would-be politicians to the table here today. Let's just very briefly go through some of the highlights of your four plans. We'll do this really quickly. Sheldon, if you would, let's bring these up. The Liberal plan calls for $29 billion over the next 10 years, split into two separate funds. Greater Toronto-Hamilton area receiving $15 billion, the rest of the province $14 billion. The PC plan dedicates up to $2 billion a year per year after the budget is balanced in 2016-17. The NDP plan, $29 billion over 10 years, same number as the Liberals, for transit and transportation projects across the province. The Green Party plan would put forward $3 billion a year to build and operate transit in communities across Ontario. I'd like a brief word from all of you on why you think your approach is the best approach. Glenn Murray.
So it's a fully funded plan. So we have $100 billion over the next 10 years in base infrastructure. We're $17 billion already spent and invested in the $50 billion big move in about 6 years. So if you do the math on that, $17 billion on a 25-year plan, that's a $50 billion plan, we're ahead of schedule on it. We have increased taxes. There's a tax on over people who make over $220,000, another one on 150, plus some additional fuel taxes, plus green bonds. That gives you the full funding for a costed incredible $29 billion program on top. So this isn't repurposed dollars, this is to accelerate. So this gives you 15-minute express rail across the GO service. So if you're at Main and Danforth, the 40-minute subway ride to Union Station isn't the fast way to go. It's the 8-minute regional express rail. That will be 2 years to get that up and running. So it's a dramatic change in doubling GO ridership and doing that, plus building the LRT, the 15 LRT subway, and you were talking earlier about the Viva BRT. So there's 15 BRT in Viva.
That's in York Region, the Viva
York Region, and there's others. Pulse, a brilliant one there. Okay. So that's the plan.
Okay. Jamie, why is your plan the better plan?
For over a decade now, we've seen Liberals go around the province trying to be everything to everyone. In this election, I think people have a clear choice. We need a premier, Tim Hudak, who's going to make the tough choices and be honest. We cannot afford to do everything, and gridlock is one of the biggest problems that are affecting our economic competitiveness. Both the OECD and the Toronto Region Board of Trade have talked about this. So what we want to do here in the GTA specifically, first and foremost, is upload responsibility for all rail, subway, and highway infrastructure to the province. So instead of having continuing bickering between various levels of government whenever any election campaign is going on, we're going to have a real leadership coming from the province. The first priority is going to be building the downtown relief line or the East-West Express subway south of Bloor. After that, we're also going to focus on highway infrastructure and alleviating bottlenecks within the system, and we're going to massively expand GO Transit. That'll include two-way all-day service on all 7 lines, not just the one Lakeshore line we see today. And it'll also include rush hours, increase in rush hour service. The people on Richmond Hill today, when they want to go, they have to choose between either dropping their kids off at school or getting to work on time. By expanding that rush hour, it'll give parents more flexibility to structure their lives accordingly.
Good enough. Rosario Marchese.
Well, much of, we'll be spending $29 billion as well, and divided $15 billion in the Toronto GTHA and the $14 billion for the rest of the province. What we are promising as well, which I think is very important, is bringing back the bus replacement program, which is a $60 million program, where we know it's not as sexy as subways. We understand that. But across the Toronto and the GTHA, it's an important part of the program to get people moving. We need to bring that back. It was cancelled in 2010, and that's something that is vital. We're also shifting some of the weight back onto the corporate sector, saying you benefit as well. We'd like you to contribute, which is why we're proposing a 1% increase in corporate taxes, which would raise $650 million at the beginning, and by the end of it, it was $780 million. We desperately need new revenues, which is why we're proposing that business become partners with us, without whom it's going to be a problem. We've shifted the responsibility onto the taxpayers, to citizens, and people are tired. And so we want to bring some of that shift, progressive shift back to the corporate sector, including those who are wealthy in the province. And that will bring back some of the balance we desperately need.
Tim Grant.
Well, as the reporter said earlier, and Cherise Berta made reference to, in fact, we are the only party that's putting on the table the idea that every report on transit has indicated in the last 5 or 6 years, which you have to start, including taxing, a variety of other taxes, you have to start charging drivers something if you're going to reduce traffic congestion and fund transit at the same time. You need to do both. And, I would step back and remind my fellow panelists and your viewers that the last major study in Canada that looked at the cost of the contribution of drivers to roads showed that they're only contributing 33% of the cost of building and maintaining roads in Canada.
Through gas taxes and that kind of thing?
Exactly. And so whereas you and I get on the subway, let's say after the show, and we're contributing 77% of the cost of the TTC. So that's the one big piece. But when I became the transportation critic for our party 3 years ago, one of the first things I did in my research, what I discovered in my research is in Ontario, apart from the capital funding, for the last 20 years, we've been spending $6 on highways for every dollar we spend on transit. When most of us live in cities, it's time to start redistributing that. And even if we just stop building highways through farm fields, we'd have a lot more money for transit.
Glenn Murray, would you acknowledge the Green Party's plan is the most specific, costed, ambitious, with actual new revenue tools in it to get the job done?
No. I would certainly give them credit that I would say they're probably the only other party that has a fully funded plan, but it's more than just transit. It's where you put buildings, where you align and make investments. So there are new taxes, and believe me, if you come knock on doors in Rosedale with me, you'll hear a lot about those. And if you watch the All Candidates debate in Toronto Centre, you'll hear about those revenues.
So the better off people in your riding are thrilled with the fact
No, some of them are, but
it's
it's certainly divided. I mean, I as I said, it's hard to find any party that's ever gotten elected on a commitment to raise taxes. I think Gordon Campbell, exceptionally with the carbon tax in BC, was maybe the one who did that. So part of it is, I think we actually have to get the job done. We had a minority legislature where we tried many different ideas about how we could fund this. We landed in the budget with a fully costed plan, $29 billion. That's not our total funding. The last time the province of Ontario invested 2% of GDP, which in today's dollars is $13 billion a year, because no one ask everyone else about the $100 billion you need for everything else, was when Premier Robarts was in office. You have to go back. Robarts, Leslie, Frost.
That's the 1960s.
The 60s. In your previous panel, they talked about the 40 years of neglect. Well, how bad was it? $1.9 billion spent by Mike Harris the last few years in office. Zero investment in GO. So all that stuff that was built in the 40s, 50s, 60s is all falling apart and has to be replaced.
Let me go to Jamie then.
And you have the underinvestment to compensate for it.
Jamie Ellerton, your party's platform has, to the extent it has received attention, it's received the attention because it proposes to cancel a lot of the stuff that obviously hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Ontarians are hoping will be built. We're talking about LRTs in Toronto, we're talking about one in Mississauga, and so on. Any concern that that's just going to tick a lot of people off?
Listen, Steve, I think people realize with the hole we're in, the Liberals have doubled the debt over the past decade, and the deficit went up again this year. We can't continue down this path. For every dollar that we're spending on interest payments, which is now $11 billion every year going to bondholders, that's money that's not getting invested in transit. So we need to balance the budget, and that's why Tim Hudak is going to demonstrate leadership and make tough decisions and be honest with the electorate. The priorities in the GTA will be to get the downtown relief line built and implement the Ontario Transportation Trust.
Do you need a new revenue stream to get that downtown relief line built?
No, Ontario has a spending problem. We don't have a revenue problem. If you can't find $2 billion a year in the existing $12 billion capital infrastructure project, it's not, budget, it's not really a priority.
So do you know what you would take it away from in order to fund that?
Yes, we've been clear that we will not proceed with the Hamilton LRT like the Liberals have announced they're looking to do. It's not actually funded, it's just a promise and other things like that. LRTs in Ottawa and LRTs in Waterloo, where the funding is in place and construction's underway, we are going to complete those. Here in Toronto, we're going to complete the Eglinton Crosstown when we form government. But the other aspirational project that Liberals have talked about that they have no record of delivering on, we are not going to proceed with those. The priorities will be building subways and getting the pressure off the existing Young University Spadina line to get Toronto moving again.
Can you win seats in cities if you promise not to build rapid transit in those cities?
I think if we look at the problem here in the GTA, and Mississauga is another example of this, the real congestion problem in Mississauga isn't north-south, it's east-west. This is where the expansion of all-day GO Transit two-way lines is going to increase the ability for people to get to and from the GTA by investing in highway infrastructure to be able quicker for products to get to and from market. Fruit coming out of Niagara is not going to get to Toronto in an LRT. Auto parts aren't going to move on the subway. We need to invest. It's not one or the other. The answer is both. And Tim Hudak is being honest about the plan we're putting forward to Ontarians.
You're shaking your head a lot over here. How come?
Well, I am, because it's just Houdini kind of politics, and it's simply not believable. Part of the problem is that in the last 19 years, we have given away $19 billion of corporate tax cuts, which means the province has lost $19 billion of revenues that we desperately need. Are we overspending, or are we, or do we have a revenue problem, which is the real problem? And so part of the problem is we need to bring back revenues, but we have to do it in a way that we bring people along. We could bring tolls, we could raise gas taxes, the HST, and God bless. The Green Party thinks that might be an acceptable strategy. But I think you've got to bring people along in that debate. And maybe they can do it, but without people's support around some of these things, it's complicated.
Well, how much time do you want to bring them along?
You have to. This is why we proposed bringing back some corporate taxes revenues, because we have shifted away from progressive taxation in the last 19 years, including an income tax cut 3 years ago by the Liberal government. They gave away $1.3 billion in income tax cuts. We can't continue to give revenue away and then say we've got a problem in urban transit and regional transit across the GTHA.
The Greens have a corporate income tax increase in their plan, and they also have some other ambitious things in there as well.
Let's hear them.
Well, he's talked about them already, but go ahead.
I want to talk about the tools here, for example, because $2 billion of our $3 billion in transit revenue comes from a $2 a day parking surcharge across the Greater Toronto Hamilton area. And that's in retail and corporate and workplace lots and retail lots.
And what will that get you? For $2 a day extra, what does that get you?
That gets you $2 billion a year.
To build on? To build what with?
Well, we're going to be raising $3 billion. We got another $1 billion in a variety of other things, including land value capture, which I think is another way a better way than actually using corporate taxes.
That doesn't reach much money.
Hang on, we got to figure out what it is first. Land value capture is one of those expressions that needs to be explained.
Absolutely, thank you. So the idea is that we build public investment, let's say a new subway or an LRT, and around those stations, the owners of property earn enormous returns. So it's a public investment, private returns that the owners didn't actually put in any investment in their own to do that. So a land value capture is where you take 50% or some percentage of the increased value, and you capture that to help pay for the subway.
But it doesn't raise much money, Tim.
No, we're targeting $100 million across Ontario with our rapid transit lines.
Let's try this. Sheldon, Chapter 2 here, let's bring up the, we want to talk about some of the revenue streams here that have been on offer, or at least proposed by various organizations. Last December, Glenn Murray, your Liberal government, appointed a panel that made some recommendations on how some of this stuff ought to be funded. Let's bring that up. One of the things was a 3 cent per litre increase in the gas tax, adding 1 cent per litre annually up to 10 cents per litre. That was an option. Or a 5 cent per litre increase with a further 0.5% increase to the HST. In March of 2013, the Toronto Region Board of Trade made a similar call for dedicated revenue tools, including an add-on to both the HST and the gas tax. The three mainline parties, not the Greens, I don't think, but the three mainline parties have basically rejected all of those recommendations. How come? Glenn Murray, you first.
I think that there's been stress on the middle class, and I think that very early when these ideas got floated, the opposition to those ideas crystallized very quickly as this was the wrong time to think about or do that, and that you needed a more progressive solution, which is why we did what we did in the budget. But I just want to be clear, we made a $50 billion commitment. We're not sort of starting it, we're $17 billion into it. And if you look at the math, we'll be even further ahead than that in the next 10 years.
But your Premier promised, quote unquote, an adult conversation on funding transportation in which she had a lot of options on the table, and took 90% of them off the table.
And then she appointed a transportation minister and a team to say, how do we do this? So the question is what do you build? So when you electrify regional express rail, you double the number of people on GO and you dramatically reduce congestion. I've looked at the numbers for the Conservatives. There is no ridership increase. There actually is no ridership increase. When you cancel,
in their projections, you mean?
In their projections. I've read through that. They're going to cancel 142 kilometers of LRT and BRT and subway to build 18 kilometers that actually has nothing to do with people getting to work. It doesn't connect any residential area to any employment line. It will actually make congestion worse. So if you go to regional express rail, and this is not my numbers, we brought in the best experts in the world in FCP, the people who did this in London, Paris, New York, and Chicago. They said, why don't you build regional express rail? So if you're at Maine and Danforth, you can get on electric every 15 minutes. Within 2 years, you'll be able to get on an electric vehicle there and be down to Union Station in 8 minutes. And that train runs every 15 rather than getting on a subway, which would take you 40 minutes.
I should ask Jamie if you think it's been accurately characterized.
No, I think throughout this campaign, you've seen a lot of negativity coming from the Liberals and throwing numbers around.
Well, but is he wrong?
Yes, I believe he is wrong. What you're going to do with the GO Rail is increase all-day service, which will allow people to move as they see fit. To come back to your point on how we're going to fund this, the solution isn't more new taxes. If we look at the 7.7 million square feet of office space that we have in downtown Toronto, some of the most expensive real estate in the country where we operate, we can sell some of that and invest it into transit. If we look at reprioritizing the budget, a dedicated revenue stream that'll come from our surpluses after we balance the budget in 2016, 2017, that will be there.
In fact, Rob Pritchard, who's the head of Metrolinx, said to me at one of his announcements, you could sell OPG, realize hundreds of millions of dollars, and use that for transit.
That's part of our plan. If we look at the public dollars for public goods, we are going to invite the large pension plans, the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, the Canada Pension Plan, to invest in our infrastructures like that. OPG is one of those. Hydro One could be another. The LCBO, and have this money invested into our system, into Crown assets, so that we can redeploy that on the infrastructure we actually need, which is combating gridlock, which is a huge barrier to jobs in this economy.
I know you're not for that. But by the same token, your party hasn't exactly been brave in putting out new ideas out there for funding. Yeah, I mean, you've walked away from all of these dedicated revenue streams too, right?
Steve, we didn't walk away. We don't support regressive taxes, and we said that from the beginning.
So what's the alternative?
The alternative is convincing the Liberal Party to accept the surcharge, the tax on those who were earning $500,000 and up, and we brought them in kicking and screaming, but they did that. That was a good beginning.
That was a few years ago.
That was a few years ago, indeed. We also forced them to not reduce corporate taxes further. That was a few years ago as well. And these guys, these fine Conservatives, are going to cut corporate taxes by another $2.6 billion, further giving away revenues that we don't have. And they're actually going to make it worse. And the Liberals had 11 years. To be fair, they've had 11 years, and in the last 3 or 4 years, they've invested some money, which is not a bad thing. But we need to, and Glenn talks about electrification, which New Democrats strongly agree with, but we could have done that with the Airlink 4 years ago, and we still don't have a sense of when they might electrify, because yes, it's the better way to go, and we promised that that's what we would do.
I do want to ask Tim Grant, though, is your suite of options, as the people in this business like to call them, is it a bridge too far for too many people? In other words, is the economy just too bad right now to start talking about congestion charges or HST or this kind of thing?
No, I think people are really fed up. You started at the outset of your show with the 82 minutes daily commute, the worst in North America. And people are losing, I think it's the latest stat I saw was the equivalent of 8 40-hour work weeks stuck in gridlock. So paying $2 a day parking surcharge or a variety of other measures is really small change in relation to the amount of what you're going to gain. In fact, Cherise Berta's organization that you had Cherise in earlier,
Pembina Institute.
The Pembina Institute released a report a little while ago that said that when the big move is finally operational in about 10 years, drivers themselves are going to save $2,000 because of time saved and in less gas expenses.
But that's then. The immediate.
I think that's what leadership is all about, is that you have to get before people and put the choices there. And that's what we're doing in this election, is saying, look, we've got a choice. We can either accept and continue to tolerate the worst gridlock in the world, or in fact, we're going to actually do something about it. And I think there's lots of polls out there that show that at least 50% of drivers are willing to pay these kinds of fees if there's a discernible
So-
benefit
Tim,
to congestion.
Tim,
Rosario first, please.
Even the panel, Ann Golden didn't propose, I think she proposed 25 cents or 50 cents parking fee, if I recall.
She was the lowest.
So I mean, yeah, there are people who talk about increasing, but no one has recommended that of any panel that has been put together. Why do you think that would work?
Why would you want to raise taxes in the next 10 years when there's a 10-year plan in place that sustains a $130 billion infrastructure program with some net new taxes on higher net worth individuals, doubles the ridership on Go from 65 million to 130 million, and will take it up to, they believe, 211 million 5 years after that. Right now, we have a budget before us that builds out all 15 transit lines, electrifies the entire system, and provides high-speed rail within that. And I can give you the ridership, and I can give you the value capture. If you go to Canadian Urban Institute, that I was one of the people who authored that study.
You were the head of that organization.
So I just want to ask one question though. What's your ridership numbers? I can tell you the ridership in the Liberal plan. I can tell you we're taking 20,000 cars a day off the 401. I can tell you the Tory plan actually creates more congestion and spends more money. And when they cancel 142 kilometers of rapid transit, they're going to have a $20 billion problem in payouts they're going to have to make for canceled contracts, which you think that everyone in Ontario would have learned canceling contracts is not a good idea.
What we're missing,
like the gas plant.
Like learn some lessons, folks.
What the other three parties are missing is that what they're talking about is funding transit, and that's half of the solution. What they're not talking about, and unless you bring in some kind of road pricing as advocated earlier in the conversation, is you don't reduce gridlock, you don't reduce traffic congestion. And we think in the Green Party think we need to do both, and I'm betting drivers would agree.
Can I one last one? The experience around the world, when you bring in, for example, in London, England, a congestion charge, do fewer people really drive their cars downtown as a result?
They do. What happens is that the people who are driving, who would rather take transit, and in London they added 3,000 buses the day the congestion charge came, so people had a transit option. That's not something we're likely to be able to afford to do here as quickly, but that, so that there was huge satisfaction in London, and there will be here. And one of the ways of doing this also is you can also bring these in as pilot projects if you want. Stockholm did that very successfully.
Would you do that, Glenn Murray? Would you bring in congestion charges as a pilot project?
Here's where I have a very strong disagreement with the Greens. When they brought in congestion charges, they were doing it on the backs of an incredibly developed, the most mature subway and rapid transit system in the world.
This is London, England.
Right. So the reason congestion charges and transportation is already the second highest cost for households, shelter and transportation. You won't find too many places in the world where transportation is, because people have 4 or 5 cars now because they don't have transportation options. I'll just go back to the Eglinton Crosstown line. $5 billion, started 6-7 years ago. For the last 7 years, we've been spending the same level of money in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. The only government that ever did of any stripe in a long time. The federal government will invest $73 million in Ontario in infrastructure. But let's take the Eglinton line. It intersects with 2 subway lines and 3 GO lines. So at Caledonia, at Main Street, at all of those places, you'll get downtown in 3 to 8 to 12 minutes, repurposing the existing tracks and putting them into high-speed rail. There is no plan on the table that comes close. No plan on the table that comes close to moving those numbers.
How many new lines have we seen opened by the Liberals? 0. How many new subway stations have opened up by the Liberals? 0. The PCs have opened a proud history on transit. We've opened 64 subway stations in Toronto. We've opened 7 GO lines in Toronto. The Liberal plan to continue to try and be everything to everyone and never really follow through on things is not the solution that's going to break gridlock. We need to attract the investment back. We need to beat gridlock to attract investment back here by investing in subways that's going to move people so they want to take transit to get to work. Expand all-day GO service and improve the customer experience so it gets people out of their cars and to work.
You haven't but they haven't, in my memory of 24 years in the legislature, they haven't done a thing. Their only claim to fame is to fill the Eglinton line that we were building, the subway we were building, and spending $100 to fill that hole. They have absolutely no experience in the last 24 years on subways, except for in their past history.
I think he's
this is true.
Frost, Robarts, Davis.
Many people weren't alive then.
Yeah. Although all of us no, you weren't. But the rest of us around this table were. Hang on, Glenn Murray, because I got a quote I got to come to you with.
Okay.
Because I'm fascinated in your evolution. Last June, interview with Spacing Magazine to John Lawrence, whom you know has been on this program many times, good guy. You had this to say about funding transit. We will need a new revenue tool. Whether it's congestion charges or payroll tax or sales tax or gas taxes, every single urban region that has tried to build a project on the scale we're trying to do has had to introduce a revenue tool. Have you changed your mind on that?
No, and we have. I mean, and as I said, come knock on doors with me. There are new income taxes for higher net worth individuals.
That's not a new revenue tool. That's an existing revenue tool.
Well, it's an increase in revenue. You need new revenue, and there's also 2 gas taxes. And the other thing we've done, which is something we got back to value planning, regional express rail is in effect a value planning exercise, because when you go to smart train controls and you run these vehicles like subways, like that, which you can't do with diesels, you totally change the economics of that. So the subsidy basically evaporates on the Lakeshore Line.
I don't mind when politicians change their mind. I really don't. If you've changed your mind, though, I just want to know.
No, and I think that statement is true. And I think at one point in the future, 10 years out, we're going to have to start looking at something that is more substantial if you want to look at that far in the future.
But the political reality of today is too tough?
In the next 10 years, and it was what Cherie said, you got to build this stuff. I've always said there's the world after the Eglinton line opens and people can actually see what an LRT is, that it actually runs underground, it doesn't run in traffic, it's not what Rob Ford said it is.
Not a glorified streetcar.
It's actually pretty spectacular. And we can build all this stuff for the next 10 years and do that. And then let's see what the state of our economy is, because right now, when we do the East Bayfront LRT out to that's going to trigger 15 million square feet of office space to go to that. That's not small potatoes.
Okay,
that's hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue.
I got another quote here. And if you've got kids watching, you may just want to take them away from the TV set here for a second, because in order to accurately convey this quote, I'm going to have to use some profanity. But that's what's in the quote. Here's Joseph Heath, professor of philosophy at the U of T, who wrote this last April. Tim Hudak has promised that it's possible to build new subways without raising taxes, but by eliminating government waste. Andrea Horvath has promised that the NDP would build new subways without raising taxes on ordinary, hardworking people, but by taxing corporations. Waste and corporate taxes are basically magic hats that politicians can pull anything they like out of. Whenever a conservative says that a project will be paid for by eliminating waste and creating, quote, efficiencies, what that says to the median voter is, you won't have to pay for it. And whenever the NDP says that a project will be paid for by increasing corporate taxes, or better yet, closing corporate tax loopholes, this is also just code for you won't have to pay for it. All of it, the professor says, is bullshit, in the sense that anyone paying attention knows that you will have to pay for it, otherwise you won't get it. It's just a line that politicians can use in order to avoid explicitly stating the fact. Responses, please. Over here.
This
Rosario.
is why we need to make the priority of balancing the budget to lower corporate taxes, to attract investment back to Ontario that's going to create jobs, to reduce the size of government so that we're actually living within our means and pay down our debt. And if you look at the Ontario Transportation Trust that Tim Hudak and the Ontario PCs are going to do, it's going to be $2 billion of prioritizing. That's leadership is making a choice. So we are going to choose to make the decision to put $2 billion every single year into the Ontario Transportation Trust. Ontario has a spending problem, not a revenue problem. We need politicians at Queen's Park who are going to make choices.
That $2 billion in the trust comes from where?
That's going to come out of the pre-existing $12 billion provincial capital infrastructure budget. Additional funding will come from selling off additional assets so that we can invest that money back into transit. We're going to have increased commercialization of GO stations. Let's imagine where you can go and drop off your dry cleaning, pick up breakfast, and hop on the train instead of having to stop 3 times on the way to the GO station. By leasing off that space to entrepreneurs to run businesses there, that's going to, again, bring more revenue to the system that gets invested back into the system.
I need to get Rosario Marchese to respond to this as well, because the claim here that you can build new subways with a simple corporate tax increase but not taxing ordinary hardworking people, he says is not on.
Well, I disagree with Mr. Heath. Obviously, I think we need to bring back some trust from the public. If we don't have a bit of trust from the public, we won't be able to do a thing. And so what we're doing is shifting some of the responsibility through a progressive tax on corporations. And I think when we do that, people are going to say, okay, it's about time they contribute some money. It's an important beginning. And that's part of how we bring back trust. And talking about the Financial Accountability Office is an important part of this debate. For us, having that office look at all the public-private partnerships that the other two parties have a total commitment to. In fact, we're building more projects through that means than ever in our history. And we believe that having such an office would reveal indeed how much we're spending through that process versus public procurement, which would be a lot more cheaper for us to be able to do. And so having that office would reveal the level of mismanagement and waste in the system. So we look forward to that.
When I read this quote, Tim, you were the only guy who went here, here. Why did you say here, here?
Well, I said that. I mean, again, we welcome an adult conversation about how to fund transit, and I think the best way to establish the better way to establish the trust that Rosario just referred to is to say to drivers, if you have if the revenue tools of $2 a day parking surcharges, high occupancy lane surcharges, and so forth, are all dedicated to improving transit that's going to take lots of drivers off the roads and provide commensurate benefits for those who are paying those fees, they're going to, I firmly believe that the majority of Ontarians, if not immediately, are very soon going to be in strong support of them.
Glenn Murray.
So I don't think you need them in the next 10-year cycle. And I think that until we actually have all of the regional express rail, which will be up within 2 years, complete within 10, when we get all of these lines that we're currently building, which we're fully funded, we've gotten $17 billion the way to a $50 billion investment without raising taxes. We're now proposing to raise some taxes and to introduce the tools. But the Conservatives and the NDP don't have a plan they can give you any numbers on ridership yet. And what's the problem with the Conservative one, which is really a huge problem, is that 30% corporate tax cut is resulting in what they commit to, which is a 10% across-the-board cut in funding to municipalities, who also have to support transit. We put $160 million in gas tax. We transfer the federal gas tax.
Their position, though, is short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah, but this is what's good. But let me finish. Let me finish. You're going to have the floors out.
Yeah.
So that 30% is going to show up on your property tax bill. Because if you cut the City of Toronto or the City of Kitchener's grants by 10%, they either have to cut back their services or you're going to pay for it on your property tax bill. So this is a tax transfer. They're giving corporations a tax break, and they're going to increase the taxes on Rosario and all my other friends by about 10%, or they're going to see a loss of service, which is what they did last time.
Equal time for Jamie here.
So all my other friends here want to raise taxes. The only party in this election that is offering a plan that won't raise their taxes and combat congestion is the Progressive Conservative Party. Out of the existing 2 cents per liter gas tax that gets transferred to municipalities, that is staying. That is not going anywhere. What we are proposing is additional funding for the Ontario Transportation Trust to invest that here in the GTA to combat congestion. And we can do this without raising your taxes. And by cutting corporate taxes, we're going to attract 120,000 jobs back to Ontario as a part of the Million Jobs Plan. And the activity that happens as a result of a growing economy and actually having a balanced budget and perhaps paying down some of that debt. So instead of paying the debt the Liberals have doubled over the past 10 years and the $11 billion we give to bondholders every year for interest payments, we can start reducing that debt, investing into transit, and getting people moving.
You got to be careful about pointing fingers about debt, because Harper's doubled the debt too, right? I mean, we had a great recession here, and everybody did what they felt they had to do.
Yeah, but here we are 6 years after the recession, and their deficit went up again this year, while everyone else is getting back into play.
That is a fact.
So there's a complete abdication of leadership coming from the Liberal Party
On
here.
the day when the Northern Ontario Leaders Debate took place, and your leader was there, and your leader was there, your leader wasn't invited, your leader said he had other plans. Let's do just a few minutes left that we have here on Northern Ontario. Ontario Northland Transportation. Do you really think this train line is going to get up and going again?
I think it is. I don't have any doubts about that. But the challenge in the North is highways. And what people don't realize is we're spending $3 billion a year on highways in the North and trying to twin them. And our biggest crisis in Ontario, and I would say it's one of the biggest, what is the big transportation crisis in Canada, and we're in the middle of it, is the United States government pays basically for 100% of their twinned national highway system, and they've accelerated that. Obama just asked for $300 billion from the U.S. Congress. Drive across Northern Ontario. We put $600 million a year now into highways in Northern Ontario alone. We need the federal government to match it. The federal contribution to highways in Canada is zero. Their total contribution to all infrastructure is $73 million. That's how they balance their budget. If we wanted to do what the Conservatives did, we would cut our infrastructure budget by $10 billion, which is what they're going to have to do, and then we'd be back in balance. But then you destroy the recovery. So Northern highways have to be twinned. It's the truth.
Rosario Marchese, Northern Ontario. Most urgent transportation need in your view as well?
Well, Ontario Northland Rail is very important to the Democrats. And when I was negotiating behind the scenes with Greg Sobrari, I said to him, why are you guys doing this? Why don't you give the communities enough time, a year and a half, to solve whatever rail problems they have? Yes, we might be losing some money, but why don't you involve the community in a solution? We will restore the passenger services because it's vital to Northern Ontario, but it's also vital for people who use it from the south to get to the north. So that's an important service that will be restored, and it's a promise we're making.
Okay, I wish we had, I say this every night. We have an hour, no commercials, and I always still say I wish we had more time. I do want to thank everybody for participating in our discussion here today. Glenn Murray, Jamie Ellerton, Rosario Marchese, Tim Grant from the four mainline parties. Good of you to come into TVO tonight and have this debate.
Thanks, Steve.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.